My brothers and sisters, let me speak to every soul over 60 who feels the sting of distance, who feels like folks are walking away. Or maybe you're the one pulling back, and you don't even know why. Let me tell you, this isn't punishment. It's preparation. This isn't the devil. It's divine. God doesn't waste seasons. So when he starts pulling you away from people, there's a reason rooted in heaven's agenda. Let's talk about it. When you step into your 60s, you begin to notice a shift. The crowd that used to gather around you gets thinner. The phone rings less. Invitations dry up. People you used to pour your life into seem distant or disconnected. You wonder what's happening. Is it something you did? Is it just aging? But what if I told you that it's not a retreat? It's a redirection. God isn't subtracting meaning from your life. He's multiplying purpose through a quieter process. What you may not realize is that God is moving you from public assignment to private alignment. It's not punishment. It's positioning. When you were younger, the demands were different. You were in the field, raising children, building careers, managing relationships, leading ministries, making things happen. Your calling had a public face. You were called to act, to lead, to show up physically, socially, emotionally. You were busy because that season required that kind of movement. But just like God told the children of Israel, when it was time to shift camp, he's now saying the same to you. It's time to move differently. You're not being stripped of purpose. You're being realigned with it. There comes a moment in every believer's life when God slows the pace, not to stop the mission, but to deepen the connection. In your 60s and beyond, your time with God is no longer a discipline. It becomes a desire. You're no longer just checking in for spiritual duties. You are being called into deeper communion. God isn't just inviting you to work for him. He's pulling you closer to walk with him. That's private alignment. Think about Jesus. Before he stepped into public ministry, he spent time in the wilderness, not surrounded by the crowd, but led by the Spirit. Even at the peak of his work, he constantly withdrew to solitary places to pray. Why? Because private alignment was the fuel behind public assignment. And if Jesus needed it, how much more do we? In your early years, much of your focus was outward, building, fixing, supporting. But now God is calling your attention inward to his voice, his spirit, his whisper. You've spent decades speaking into others. Now he wants to speak into you in a way that only silence and solitude allow. This isn't retirement, this is refinement. God is not sidelining you. He's sanctifying you. He's removing distractions so he can deposit something new into your spirit. You're no longer just a vessel. You're becoming an overflow. You see, alignment always precedes assignment. Before David became king, he spent time alone with sheep, writing psalms, singing songs nobody heard but heaven. Before Moses led a nation, He wandered in the desert tending sheep for 40 years. That wasn't wasted time. It was alignment time. And now, as you step into your own wilderness of stillness, God is saying, I want to show you more of me. You're not less valuable now. You're just more focused. This shift is not about inactivity, it's about intimacy. God is pulling you closer, not farther. He's narrowing your circle so He can enlarge your spiritual capacity. Your public assignment may quiet down, but your private assignment is just beginning. What used to be a stage is now a sanctuary. What used to be hustle is now holy. You may not be in the spotlight, but you are in the center of His will. So don't resist the stillness. Don't mourn the shift. Recognize it for what it is, divine alignment. God is removing the noise, not to isolate you, but to instruct you. He's not cutting you off. He's carving out sacred space. You're being pulled away from public applause so you can hear the whisper of your Creator again. Because in this season, it's not about what you do for Him. It's about who you are with Him. And that, my friend, is a calling far greater than any stage can offer. There comes a point in life when the noise of people, the buzz of obligations, and the clutter of conversation begin to fade. Not by accident, but by divine intention. When you reach the season past 60, many of the relationships and connections you once depended on start to shift. Some drift away, others fade into silence. You may find yourself sitting in rooms you used to fill with laughter, now filled with quiet. But that quiet is not emptiness, it's sacred. God is doing something holy in that silence. He is separating you not to punish you, but to speak to you clearly. God has always done His most powerful work in isolation. When He wants to reveal Himself in a deeper way, He removes distractions. He isn't trying to take something from you. He's trying to give something to you. Something so vital, so rich, so transformative that it can only be received in stillness. You see, clarity doesn't come through chaos. It comes through consecration. And the separation you feel in this season isn't a sign that God is distant. It's a sign that He wants to get closer. In your younger years, God may have spoken to you in community, through friends, through pastors, through mentors. But now, He wants to speak directly. You've matured. You've walked through storms. You've seen His hand. Now He's saying, come a little closer. Let me talk to you myself. When God separated Abraham from his country and his relatives, He didn't do it to make Abraham lonely. He did it to make him listen. Some truths are too sacred to be delivered in a crowd. They require the audience of one. You may wonder why certain people don't call anymore. Why the ones you supported don't check in. Why the noise has died down. But it's in that quiet that the whisper of God becomes more distinct. He's been speaking the whole time, but now the volume of everything else has finally gone low enough for you to hear. You were surrounded by people for so long that his voice had to compete. Now, he has your undivided attention. And when God has your attention, he starts to show you things you missed in the busy seasons. Look at Moses at 40. He was a prince in Egypt, surrounded by power, immersed in activity. But it wasn't until he was 80, on the backside of the desert, tending sheep in solitude, that God appeared to him in a burning bush. God didn't choose the palace. He chose the wilderness. Why? Because Moses had finally become quiet enough to receive the call. Sometimes God waits until the crowd clears to give you clarity. And maybe that's what's happening to you. He's removing the external voices so you can hear the internal call. He's pulling you away from the demands of others so he can place divine demands on your soul. He's not taking you into isolation for despair. He's taking you into intimacy for direction. Some of the most powerful instructions in your life will not come through sermons or conferences. They will come in the hush of an early morning, in the silence of an empty room, in the stillness of your spirit. And in those moments, you will find that God has not been silent. He's just been waiting. So don't fear the separation. Don't misinterpret the silence. You are not being left behind. You are being led aside. God is positioning you for a deeper hearing, a sharper discernment, a clearer understanding. He's shifting your season from noise to knowing, from public chatter to personal counsel. And in that sacred space, you will discover what only silence can reveal, the voice of the Lord, unfiltered and undisturbed. He is still speaking. And now, finally, you're ready to hear. There comes a season in life where your impact no longer depends on how visible you are, but on how rooted you've become. After 60, your influence begins to shift from social activity to spiritual authority. You may not be out front the way you once were. You may not be hosting the gatherings, leading the meetings, or being the center of attention anymore. But don't think for a second that your role has diminished. In fact, your influence has only deepened. It's just moved to a different realm. God is transitioning you from surface level interaction to spirit-filled impact. You're no longer meant to impress people with presence. You're now designed to affect them through prayer, wisdom, and legacy. There was a time when your calendar was full, your phone rang constantly, and your presence was requested everywhere. And while that may have made you feel needed, God knows there's a greater power that doesn't require a platform. That power flows from a person who has walked with him, trusted him, and carries the weight of divine experience. At this stage of your life, you've lived through enough storms, seen enough miracles, and learned enough hard truths to speak not just from theory, but from testimony. People may not gather around you the way they used to, but when you open your mouth to speak, or bend your knees to pray, something shifts in the atmosphere. Your influence is no longer about how many people see you. It's about how deeply you touch the few who do. When you walk into a room, you bring peace because you've learned to carry the presence of God. When someone sits with you, they walk away with wisdom because you've sat with the Lord. This is a quieter influence, but don't mistake its silence for weakness. The enemy fears a praying elder more than he fears a loud preacher. Why? Because a life soaked in prayer carries a weight that noise cannot imitate. In your earlier years, influence looked like hustle. Now it looks like stillness. It looks like mentoring a young soul over coffee. It looks like interceding for your family in the early hours of the morning. It looks like speaking one sentence that carries more truth than an hour-long lecture. You're no longer just part of the conversation. You've become the anchor of wisdom in the room. This is not a loss of relevance. It's a rise in spiritual rank. The Bible tells us that the glory of young men is their strength. But the beauty of old men is their gray hair. That's not just about age. It's about authority earned through time. There are some lessons that don't come through study. They come through scars. And your scars have become sacred. They tell the story of survival, of faith tested and proven, of endurance that defied defeat. People may not always say it out loud, but they look at you differently now. Because whether they realize it or not, they see something on you. They don't have yet depth. God doesn't retire his servants. He repurposes them. And you, my friend, are being repositioned. You're not less. You're more. You're not forgotten. You're favored. The world may celebrate the loud, the young, and the visible, but heaven honors the seasoned, the faithful, and the spiritually mature. You carry a weight that can't be measured in likes or follows. It's measured in prayers answered, generations touched, and seeds planted. So don't diminish your role in this season. Don't believe the lie that your best days are behind you. God is using you in ways that no stage could ever showcase. Your voice may not reach thousands at once, but your prayers can shake nations. That's real influence. That's kingdom power. And that's exactly what God is doing through you now. There is a moment that comes after decades of living, serving, and striving when God begins to change the nature of your purpose. It's not that he's finished with you. It's that he's shifting your focus. You spent years building, proving, achieving. You were present in the lives of your children, involved in your community, investing in your church, constantly giving, constantly doing. But now, something feels different. You're not as busy, not as needed, and perhaps not as noticed. And that can feel like a loss until you realize what God is really doing. He's not reducing your life. He's redirecting it. You're being repositioned for legacy, not popularity. In your earlier years, recognition mattered. Your success could be measured in titles, positions, applause, or appreciation. But now, in this later season, God begins to wean your soul off of public affirmation. He knows what you really need isn't more visibility, it's more substance. The applause fades, but legacy lasts. And legacy isn't built in crowds. It's carved in quiet places, in private conversations, in decisions that no one else sees but heaven records. That's the work you've now been assigned. You're being repositioned because God wants what you carry to outlive you. You've gathered wisdom not just to store it, but to pass it on. You've suffered losses not just to endure them, but to use them as stories that heal others. You're not done teaching. You're just teaching differently. You're mentoring now, not managing. You're imparting now, not impressing. This is legacy building, and it requires a different pace, a different posture, and a different platform. God is narrowing your circle, not to make you lonely, but to make you intentional. He's not sending you everywhere anymore because your time is more valuable now. You don't have to say yes to every meeting, every request, every opportunity. Why? Because you've already learned what really matters. You've seen how fast seasons can change. You've witnessed how people can disappear. You've buried some friends, released some dreams, and survived some disappointments. And because of that, your time is no longer up for grabs. It's sacred. In this season, legacy is about pouring your life into the right people, not pleasing the crowd. It's about making deposits into your grandchildren, your spiritual sons and daughters, the hungry hearts who come not to flatter you, but to learn from you. You may not have as many followers in the world's sense of influence, but you have weight. When you speak now, people pause. When you pray, heaven listens. When you share, people receive it differently because you've lived what you're saying. There's power in that. That's legacy. You also find yourself reflecting more in this season. You think about what you're leaving behind. Not the material things, but the eternal ones. You think about your character, your faith, your values. You're beginning to realize that what God is doing in you now is just as important as what He did through you before. He's refining your heart, sharpening your discernment, giving you clarity. You see more clearly now. You speak more wisely now. And everything you say and do has the potential to echo into future generations. So, don't grieve the fact that your name isn't as talked about as it once was. Don't let it trouble you that your influence looks different. You're not falling behind. You're stepping into your final assignment. This is not about the spotlight. It's about the torch. You're being positioned to pass something on, not to hold something up. You've been chosen to leave a trail, not just take a bow. And when you realize that, you'll walk into this season with purpose, with peace, and with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're building something that will outlast your name and carry the fragrance of your faith long after you're gone. That's legacy. There are times in life when God allows the volume of everything around you to decrease, not because he wants to punish you, but because he wants you to hear him more clearly. After 60, this shift becomes more noticeable. Conversations that used to excite you begin to feel empty. Friendships you once cherished start to feel distant. Invitations grow fewer, and suddenly your world feels quieter. But in that quiet, something sacred is happening. God is cutting the noise so you can hear the call. And the call he wants you to hear in this season is too deep and too important and too personal to be delivered through the chatter of the crowd. Noise isn't just about sound. It's about distraction. It's about being pulled in so many directions that your spirit doesn't have the stillness it needs to receive. In earlier seasons of life, you could multitask your way through almost anything. You juggled relationships, responsibilities, ministries, and ambitions. And while God used you in those places, there was always something deeper. He wanted to say something that could only be heard when the voices around you became silent. That's what this season is about. God is not cutting people out of your life to make you bitter. He's cutting distractions out of your path to make you better. There are some divine instructions that can't be revealed until the noise dies down. Some people can't go with you into the next phase of your calling because they would cloud the clarity God is trying to give you. Not because they are evil, but because they were only assigned to you for a specific time. When that time ends, God gently removes them, not to hurt you, but to help you hear. Think about how many times in Scripture God chose solitude to speak. Elijah didn't hear God in the wind, or the earthquake, or the fire. He heard him in a still, small voice. That voice didn't come in a crowd. It came in a cave, in the quiet. God didn't call Samuel in the middle of a festival. He caught him in the night, when everything else was asleep. Jesus didn't pray in public when he needed strength. He went up into the mountains alone. The pattern is clear. When God wants to speak something weighty, he chooses stillness. He chooses separation. He chooses silence. You may be wondering why life feels like it's slowing down. Why the people you used to lean on aren't reaching out. Why you feel almost invisible. But invisibility is not the same as insignificance. Sometimes God hides you to help you hear. He's not pushing you away. He's drawing you in. You haven't lost your purpose. You're just being fine. Tuned to hear it at a higher frequency. And that frequency can only be received when the noise is gone. In this season, God is trying to get your attention. He's trying to remind you that your most important assignments may not be loud or public. They may be birthed in the quietness of prayer, whispered in the moments of solitude, and confirmed in the stillness of his presence. He's not asking you to do more. He's asking you to listen more, to tune your ear to the Spirit, to discern His voice above all others. So don't resent the silence. Don't resist the quiet. This is not a void. It's a visitation. You're being invited into a deeper place with God. You're being entrusted with insight that's not meant for crowds, but for consecration. Let Him cut the noise. Let Him silence the distractions. Because what He wants to speak to you now is too holy to be shouted. It must be heard in a whisper. And only those who have the courage to embrace the quiet will receive the clarity of the call. There is a sacred misunderstanding many people have when they reach a season of separation. When friends fade, invitations stop, routines slow, and the phone doesn't ring like it used to. It's easy to feel forgotten. It's easy to assume you're being sidelined or slowly erased from the picture. But that is not how God works with His faithful. When He begins to isolate you, He is not pushing you down. He is lifting you up. This season isn't isolation. It's elevation. And God always hides what He's about to honor. You've spent your life giving, pouring out, serving, showing up. You've been the dependable one, the strong one, the fixer, the counselor, the prayer warrior. But now it feels like everything has gotten quiet. People don't seek your presence the way they used to. Your days are more still, your calendar more open. But before you assume you've been set aside, understand this: God is getting ready to elevate you into a new dimension of spiritual authority. And to prepare you for that, He must first separate you. Elevation with God always begins in obscurity. When God gets ready to do something greater through you, He removes the clutter around you. Not everyone can walk with you into the next level. Some can't handle your growth. Some were only meant for the season, where you were accessible and available. But now God is calling you higher, and the air is thinner at the top. Not because you're better, but because you're being trusted with something greater. And that requires silence, focus, and sanctification. Think about the way God worked with Moses. When God wanted to give him the 10 Commandments, He didn't do it in a crowd. He called Moses up to the mountain alone. The elevation came with isolation. Moses had to leave the people, climb to a quiet place, and sit in God's presence for 40 days. It didn't look like glory while it was happening. It looked like abandonment. But when Moses came down from that mountain, his face was shining. He carried something no one else had. And it came because he answered the call to go higher. That's exactly what God is doing with you. He is not subtracting from your life. He is concentrating your calling. He is not silencing you. He's strengthening you. This elevation doesn't look like promotion in the world's eyes, but in heaven's view, you are stepping into a new authority. Your prayers carry more weight. Your words pierce more deeply. Your discernment sharpens. That is not the sign of being passed over. That is the mark of being set apart. And when you are set apart, you will often feel like no one sees you. But God does. He sees the tears no one asks about. He sees the obedience you offer in silence. He sees your heart remaining soft when others grow bitter. And he rewards that with elevation, not always in public view, but always with powerful impact. You may not be climbing corporate ladders or gaining social platforms, but make no mistake, you are rising. You are rising in wisdom. You are rising in spiritual sensitivity. You are rising in purpose. You are rising into the legacy God prepared for you all along. The ground you're standing on is holy now. The people he's sending to you are hungry now. The voice he's giving you is heavier now. Because he has elevated you to a place where your life is no longer about status. It's about significance. So don't mourn the loneliness. Don't misread the silence. God has not abandoned you. He has promoted you. The room may be empty, but the heavens are full. The crowds may be gone, but the cloud of his presence is closer than ever. This season is not where it ends. It's where it deepens. And where things deepen with God, they begin to change everything around you. This is not isolation. This is elevation. So to everyone over 60 who feels pulled away, God is not done with you. He's just doing a deeper work. Don't resist the quiet. Don't resent the distance. You are in the hands of the potter, and he's shaping something eternal. Because when God pulls you back, it's only because he's about to launch you forward in ways you never imagined. Stay faithful. Stay available. Stay aligned. Your best spiritual impact may still be ahead.